Good morning, or whatever time it is, BTO Pro. That's really annoying. So it's another day, and that means another Vercel endpoint microservice, micro front end. So stepping up in complexity, each one of these. This one is far more sophisticated on the back end, but it has some interesting front end components to it as well. So let's start with the demo. So I'm going to call up the network tab here. All right. And so the whole idea with this endpoint is taking a file in a format our users already use, which is docx, which, fun fact, isn't actually like a Word doc that Macintosh screwed up and now we have an X at the end because it's OS X. It is an actual format, unlike .doc. So .docx is a legit, supposedly, file format. It is legit. So we are going to accept a docx file here, and we're going to pick page contents. We'll see that it's pending. Let's look at what the payload is here. All right, so we hit our Vercel endpoint for docx to HTML, and our payload is actually upload, right? So we upload a binary file as part of this. And so we don't see what it is here because we're using FormData. So that's an interesting aspect on the front end. We're actually taking this input field, using it as FormData, and then throwing that up at our endpoints. We're throwing a file up. A fun aspect of having these endpoints, though, there's no storage there, right? It spins up. I threw a file at something that doesn't have storage. It has to effectively stream the file, read through it, then kick back the response without actually saving the file and working with it. So we can see here that it just went through and it took a docx file that had links and headings, right? Bulleted lists, numerical ordered lists, a table, data table. There's a lot going on in this because it's a syllabus for one of my courses I used to teach. And it gave it back to me as pristine, lovely HTML. So let's dig into the code, shall we? So when that gets thrown up to the endpoint, or well, first of all, when it's called, right, we just have our definition and micro front end registry saying what the endpoint is, that it accepts body data, right? And this is slightly different from the other one. Just see there's some other body data because it's a whole post of just whatever is in the body of the message that needs to then be decoded. So looking at our endpoint, first, we'll go with docx to HTML. We're pulling our request helpers as usual. In this case, we've got Mammoth, which is able to convert a docx file to HTML. So that part's easy, right? We can see here where it's called. We're just async awaiting convert to HTML, where it runs through buffer data. The hard part, though, of this was how the heck did we get the buffer data there? So we use two libraries in this case. One is Busboy, and Busboy is just a really nice, simple way of accepting form input via post, and it's just going to parse the headers and give me access to the information. Now, the part that made this a little tricky that I didn't get at first is what was sent across is actually like this stream of data. And based on the size of the file, it actually gets chunked along the way, which is the part that I didn't understand at first. So in order to take the stream and concatenate it into a singular file, so I could see what it was, we needed this concat stream library as well from npm. So reading down through here, we've got a very basic buffer object. This is what we're going to send back in the end. So we have busboy defined. We say, hey, read through the headers that came across in the request. This will help pull out our information for the file. Then on file, so it's event driven, right? So busboy.on file, meaning once we have achieved a file here, then we're going to pull info out about the file. We're going to look at the length of the file name to make sure that we have something. Then we're going to match that what got sent to us was either an octet stream or, and this is the most ridiculous MIME type ever, this is the docx official format, right? It's vnd.openxml formats -office document.word processing ml.document, because obviously. So if the MIME type is one of those two, we'll bother to process it. Then we need to pipe this content in the file, right? So we have our file here. We're going to pipe through and we're going to concat the buffer of this. I looked up how to do this. Don't act like I know what I'm doing here. Put together the buffer data, right? So that we actually concatenated all the streams of what this is together. So at the end of this, we'll get one file. You would expect to get one file, but because of the way that the streaming happens, we have to do it this way. Then on close, meaning that this whole file is, yep, we got the whole file and we're done with it, run through this. So we look at our buffer.data, which we set here to the file buffer, which was the concatenation of all these things. And then if we have buffer data, which hopefully we do, then we're going to try to convert that buffer data to HTML, taking the result and setting it into HTML here. Otherwise, we're setting the error that comes across. Then we've got our standard response. Our contents get sent back as the HTML, and then just for funsies, we send back the file name, just so we know what it is. So that's quite a bit going on. It's a lot of Stack Overflowing to figure this out. I'm not the best with Node in this configuration, but so let's see, not in the demo, which you can play with for sure. Let's see it when it's in a theoretical production state. So this is Hack CMS. I've got it running locally, and then I've also got Vercel running locally here. So where we actually go about implementing this, go, and I've got this page of content. Go, oh, we want to import our stuff here. I'm going to hit source, and you see we have import content. We have this import docx button, which automatically did the file picker in question. I can do page contents. And so what's happening here, it's going to ship that up to the endpoint. Then when the endpoint responds with the HTML, thrown into the page. And so this took all of that gorgeous HTML that I showed before with all the bulleted lists, everything, but now we have access to it in the Hacks editing environment. And so did this because this is meeting a workflow requirement that we have. We get a lot of documents in physical files still. Some people have transitioned to working in Google Docs or like Word Online. We're still finding we get a lot of people that have things in physical files, whether that's content they used to produce and are translating to the web, or whether it's just more convenient for them, particularly if you work in like an offline context. Right, it's nice to be able to just know that it's always there, and then have it in like a Google Drive or something like that for backup. So anyway, this meets a workflow requirement we're trying to go for, where people are writing in just a writing text editor and then need to put it up on the web, so then they can throw it up in Hacks this way. We can also go the other direction, which is more similar to the previous articles about getting Markdown up and down. So I don't even really need to go over that too much, but I can download the contents of this page as a docx file. And so then this will send me it back as docx format, which I can open up and hopefully have the contents of this page just as docx. Gotta love live demos. You hit the thing, and it just hangs out, and you're waiting, and it's thinking about it, and then it opens it in the wrong tab. There it is. There we go. So that is that same content as a docx file, so that we could, again, mock stuff up in the page, import it, mix it around, go, oh, shoot, we forgot this is actually going to be a lot of content, send it back to the user in a format that is more preferable for them editing. We want every format in, every format out. We want this to be the easiest editing experience, whatever your workflow is, as opposed to making the assumption that we know everything in the universe that you want to do. So the way that endpoint works, super simple. It's much more similar to the DuckDuckGo. We pull in our HTML to docx package, standard post handling, and then we await this conversion, putting in some parameters, spit back the thing to string in base64 format. Looking at how this all went together in Hacks View Source again, very similar to the previous examples with Markdown, but this is importing the docx file. We make sure we have our file broker object. We trigger the response to say, hey, go do the file selection. And this is the key difference between what's happening in the demo that you play with, right, where you're clicking on the file input. I'm having another button effectively trigger that same prompt, but without an actual HTML input tag visible. So then we only allow selection of docx compatible files. And then we create this new FormData object. which is effectively the same as if you wrote a form HTML tag and then you put input and all the other tags inside of there. We can more or less simulate this via JavaScript directly by just doing new form data. Then I append an upload to it called file, and then we ship it off to the micro front end registry. So this call also is able to rectify the difference between form data and a normal object, if you will. So if we go to micro front end registry, I believe there is special support for, there it is. We check when formulating the body if this is if parameters, which is what got passed in here, is an instance of form data, just send it along as is. Otherwise, we need to stringify it. So form data was very helpful in making sure that we could rectify the difference between actually having a form on the page and just calling one via JavaScript directly. It's something I learned as part of this. So that's how we go about doing the conversion. Again, as per other examples, yes, you could run this code natively via ES6, sometimes ES5, libraries even support it, in the front end of the browser. Do you want to ship that to someone and be completely dependent upon their connection speed, dynamic late or lazy loading of that library, as well as even just the differences between browsers? Some browsers are not going to be able to render this, or you send it up, and the little micro spins up, takes the file, does the thing, comes back with the HTML. They never notice. Plus, it takes way less time to do, dedicated resources elsewhere, tons of reasons why this is a better way of handling this. So, not sure what the next one's going to be. We're going to keep churning through the list, might be doing a simple image, or we have a vocabulary data mining tag as well, which is completely dependent on workflow and getting into more of the specifics of how Hack CMS works, as I'm showing more generic endpoint utilization right now. So make sure you keep tabs on the series, keep posting on dev.to, and have a good day.